Hi folks, Puffin here. Today I'm starting a new series of videos about people who are supposed to be smart but really aren't all that smart. Or they're not nearly as smart as they're supposed to be or as smart as people think they are. So people who aren't as smart as they think they are or as people think they are. Now, I'm super smart uh, myself, if you can't tell just by looking at me. I'm a super intelligent being and I could very well fall into the category of people who thinks he's a lot smarter than he is. So I don't know anybody as smart as me. I haven't met anybody as smart as me, in person or online. So, but then again, to be fair, I haven't met that many people in person or online. Honestly, out of the people that there are, I haven't met that many of you. So, if you're smarter than me, leave a comment. Let's get our smart on. But most importantly, I want to talk about people that are supposed to be smart and how they're not really that smart. If you are a really smart person, you hear about these other people that are supposed to be smart, and you're like, well, they're not really that smart. You kind of want to tell people how they're not as smart as people think they are, so that people don't listen to them as much. And that brings up Vladimir Putin, who's going to be the first topic of my conversation here. Um, Vladimir Putin is not as smart as people think he is, or as he thinks he is. I don't think he's as smart as he thinks he is. Maybe he is, but it's not that smart anyway, is my point. And yeah, so my credentials for talking about how smart people are is super smart. But again, I think like one reason maybe I don't know that I've met anybody who's smarter than me is because some people who are really smart devote some of that being smart into not appearing really smart. So I may have met somebody who's smarter than me, but she might have been like, I'm not um, gonna prove to you or show you that I'm smarter than you. So I wouldn't know. I don't devote much of my energy into that. I go ahead and let people know I'm smarter, which you could say is not a very smart thing to do. Um, so that points out that there's different types of smarts. Um, and so I want to try to explain this in a way that anybody can understand. Like one type of smarts is using language in a way that no one can understand, or using a bunch of terms that only somebody who knows the vocabulary or whatever can understand. Like I was watching Boba Fett, and not much of a spoiler alert, but there's scenes where they're talking a lot about repairing a ship, and they use all these terms which could be real terms for mechanical things, or it could be real terms for Star Wars mechanical things, or it could just be like fancy words for like fart jokes that they, you know, use these different words for. So, um, you be the judge. But the important thing is if you can say something that people can understand, that's good. But if you're lying to them, that's not so good. Like it would be better to be able to tell people the truth. It gets smarter to be able to tell people the truth than to tell people a lie, even if it's easy to understand or they easily believe it. So that brings us back to Putin, and Trump. Brings us back to people thinking somebody's smart who's really not that smart. Now, people do think Trump is smart, but they really don't think he's that smart. I mean, honestly, most people who think Trump is super smart are way smarter than Trump is themselves. But one thing about Trump is he's saying the things that Putin tells him to say. And if Putin's smarter than Trump and tells him to say, not all the time, but pretty much that's what he's saying. Like he's getting that message out there constantly. And that's by a design of someone who is smarter than him, admittedly, and maybe smarter than some of the people that well, smarter than some of the people like Trump, but Putin is not really that smart. People think he's some type of mastermind, and he's not. And when you think about like criminal masterminds in like James Bond movies or whatever, they're always stupid in at least one way. Like they're always stupid about talking too much, or whatever at the end. So, you know, um, or if you look at a lot of the Trump trolls, the Trump Putineers that you see in comments, they leave these awful long comments. You're like, do you really think Americans are reading these comments? Like, we haven't read anything that long since, school days or whatever, like when we had to read reading assignments because people have been reading tweets and stuff. They don't read these long paragraphs. So I don't know who Putin thinks is reading all that stuff. But some of these people kind of think for themselves once they're, programmed into this thing, but they usually get the same talking points from the same kind of networks, from the same echo chambers. And that does come from Putin. So you say, well, that's brilliant to be able to feed all this bull crap to everybody and have them all repeat it. I mean, not really. It would be brilliant if it was true things that help the world instead of fake things and lies that hurt the world. So there's just a stupidity there, or a level of intelligence that, you'd like for him to hurdle over, but he hasn't done it. So yeah, smarter than Trump, but it's a pretty low bar. Um, Smart in some ways, like probably knows a lot of things like KGB kind of stuff, or like knows a lot of strategic type of stuff. But all this stuff is kind of like, knows, could play a mean game of Risk or whatever. But like all this stuff is kind of like old world knowledge that just doesn't apply anymore. Like war is obsolete. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters. It would be good to cut it out completely. Like we don't need it at all. That's why it doesn't matter. It doesn't work. But anyway, if you're not smart enough to realize that, or if he's not smart enough to realize that he's evil, like if he's smart enough to know he's evil and just go with it, that's still not very smart, because it's not smart to be evil. But if you think you're good and you're doing these things, you're stupider than I can even imagine. Like I shouldn't even be trying to talk about it. Like a big mistake is trying to talk down to, like, to fill in the gaps to a stupid way of thinking. If you don't have to think that way, don't. But they do make most people think that way. So it would be helpful to help them out of those ways of thinking. And, the Trump Putineers are the pretty much classic case of it. Yeah, he's got all these people thinking the exact same thing, repeating the exact same thing. And yeah, a lot of them are probably bots and stuff like that. And again, it's still, the smarter person is the person making the bots than the person telling them to spew a bunch of lies. But the even smarter person would be making the bots and not selling them to the person who tells them to spew a bunch of lies, but just making the bots and make them, spew truthful things. So I've done my part. Thanks for watching, sharing. Yeah, I don't think Putin's very smart. I think we have the evidence in what he's done. Like, that Trump said all the things that Putin told him to say, because Bolsonaro said the same things, and they're the same network. Trump, I think, Putin got him elected basically using Facebook and Twitter. We're using a lot of Facebook, same network. It needs to be kind of overtaken. That would be a smart thing to do. You have perfectly within rights to just seize that company and stop it, Facebook, arrest Mark Zuckerberg, stuff like that, for their role in it. And just, start doing these kind of things. It was pleasing, even though these are just the entertainers, it's pleasing to see Joe Rogan whining about, a few hours ago, he's whining about being canceled, or whining some sort of an apology, or trying to diminish his role or downplay his role, when it's been real obvious to most of us where he and his audience stand, and you can tell by their comments. They're like, yeah, tell them how the, all the stuff they lie about, to try to make the pandemic worse, which is why I call it the Trump virus. Anyway, but Trump's been the face of it, but Putin's been behind all of that. Not smart. And I guess the biggest evidence, if you don't listen to just the conviction of my words or know what I'm talking about, and I'm talking about this already, the biggest evidence is this graph that I think Chris Hayes had. It said, these are the people who refuse to take the vaccine. And it's 30-40% in America and Russia, and then even in Brazil and other countries that Putin had a puppet in charge saying the same things Trump said. People didn't buy into it as badly, and it's only 10% in Brazil and some other countries like that. Still bad. It still affects everybody for them to be like that and keep spreading it and making more variants and etc. And the people who told you it was going to be like this told us it was going to be like this years ago. Same with global warming, climate change, climate catastrophe, like pollution, destroying the planet. We knew this decades ago, and we're experiencing some of the effects of it. We just need to go ahead and turn around. And it just so happens it's the same culprits, the same evil supervillains, super geniuses in the way. Putin and his oil companies in the way of the future of saving the planet. And so when it comes down to it, if he convinced a third of his population to be vehemently against the vaccines, he convinced a third of our population to be vehemently against the vaccines, the result of that is them being killed. Lots of them, lots of people being killed. And so, why do that? What's the point of doing it to your own people? I guess because it's somehow in his fourth dimensional chess mind, they like to credit him with, it's killing off his own people so they can't revolt. It's so stupid. It's so base level stupid. Like I said, you might play a good game of Risk, but that's not a game anybody's playing anymore. It's stupid. It's 18th, 19th century, maybe 20th century mentality, but we should have outgrown it by then. Definitely should outgrow it by now. So anyway, that's the first person on my list of people who are supposed to be real smart, but they're just not. It's Putin. And just try to get along with people. Like, is that so hard? Don't act like things are yours or like you have to be threatening to win a game when it's not a game, because people get hurt and killed not just by your warlike actions but by your lies. Like, it's killed 6 million people around the world, 850,000 Americans so far. And I put it all on Trump. Yeah, Biden could have arrested Trump at least and done some other things to help slow it down. Like I said, arrest Mark Zuckerberg, switch Facebook around, stop them from spreading the lies. He could have done some other things, but I've still put it all on Trump because he's the one who revved it up that much to begin with, and continues to, and through his little minions, continues to turn people against science and health and everybody else, nature, and we can turn them back. That's what I believe. I don't think I've used any big words you can't understand. You gotta have ears to hear it, because some people just refuse to hear the truth when it's presented to them. But the rest of us can keep sharing it, so thank you all for doing so and for listening, hearing me out. And it's good to see you, and love you forever. So let's stop war entirely. It's really stupid. Like, there's not anything smart about it, especially not anymore. We can all tell that. So, like, let's just call people out for being stupid if they're engaging in that, and then shame them into like a more clever, modern human response. Thanks for watching.